And so we're going to move the innovation and innovative projects in Greater Wichita area, Bel Air, Integra, right after the CSP update, if that's okay with everybody. So I would welcome a motion. I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda with that change. Thank you. Is there a second? Awesome. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Fantastic. Thank you. Next is the approval of the TPB minutes for April 11th, 2023. It was a fantastic meeting, so hopefully you had a chance to be here and to enjoy the minutes if you were not. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes. So moved. Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Jack. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you so much. We'll go on to the director's report with Chad.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Members of the Transportation Planning Body, good afternoon. Quick report on a few items. In the package, there is a Transportation Improvement Program status of projects list. Next to that item, we have a federal certification review that is scheduled on this Wednesday afternoon, Thursday all day, and Friday afternoon. We have Ava Steinman here from Federal Transit Administration. You met Ava Steinman last month. Ava, let's recognize Ava there. And also we have Federal Highway Administration partners and state DOT partners coming, as well as FTA agency partners coming this week for WAMPO federal certification. Let me request Ashley Byers, our Transportation Planning Manager, to update the agenda and the opportunities for you to come visit during these 3 days. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you very much. I am Ashley Byers, the Transportation Planning Manager here at WAMPO. And so as part of the federal certification review, we actually have an open house that will be at the Advanced Learning Library. We will be in the boardroom, which I believe is upstairs. So if you're going to be attending it, we're going to put up some signs. So hopefully you find the room. It'll be from 4:30 to 6:30. There will be a presentation at 4:30 and then again at 5:30. We also have an online survey that is available if anybody would like to provide input. And as Chad said, we're starting tomorrow afternoon and then we're all day on Thursday and then Friday morning. If there's any questions, happy to answer any. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. The next item in the report is, every year we do bike counts. I think Dora Gaio, our WAMPO staff, has an update on the dates, at least what dates they are occurring, and the details will come soon. Right, Dora? Please update us. Thank you, Dora.
Thank you, Chad. I'm Dora Gaio, Transportation Planner at WAMPO. Like Chad said, we're getting ready to start planning for our annual bicycle and pedestrian count. And that will be September 13th, 14th, and the 16th. And be on the lookout for those volunteer opportunities. Thank you.
Could you please also update on electrical vehicle plan update that you had a steering committee as well? Thank you.
Yeah. So last week, we had the electrical vehicle steering committee meeting. It went really well. A lot of progress was done. Still a lot to do. And getting ready to schedule the next meeting. We went over a lot of pre-planning items like identifying locations that we might need charging points at, but we're looking to get ChargePoint, which is one of the charging companies, to come and talk to the steering committee, and as well as get Evergy on board so we can learn more about do we have the capacity to for this plan. That's basically what we got. Any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. Anyone knows me knows that I love cars, so I volunteered to serve on this committee, and it was worth my time. I learned a lot on it. It brings a lot of questions to my mind on where we're going with this. There's a ton of money coming down from the federal government. There are 3 different types of chargers. I probably ought to start there: type 1, 2, and 3. I believe the ones that the federal government is interested in us putting out there are these type 3 chargers that can charge in 20, 30 minutes and get you on down the road with a full charge again. The type 1 and 2 are things that you would use mainly at your home or some place like that. They take a lot longer in order to be able to charge. But a couple of the concerns that I've got is, first of all, these type 3 chargers, they're going to require you to have 4 of these things, 150 kilowatts. So it's going to require an awful lot of power coming in from Evergy or whoever's providing that power. In addition, the cost of each one of those things is about $250,000 for one of those modules of 4 units. And the federal government's requiring a 20% match in order to be able to put that in. And by the way, we can't use TIP funds for that 20% match because that's federal money. We can't use federal money to get federal money. So as a result, if we're going to do that, that's $50,000 for each and every one of those. And I'm not sure where that $50,000 comes from in order to be able to make that 20% match. In addition, as I mentioned, what are the locations? So there's still a lot of questions. The other issue is what is it going to do to municipalities as far as their fire departments? As once that one of the cells in one of these battery packs overheats, then it starts overheating the other cells in that battery pack, and you've got a pretty good fire on your hands. I don't know, from all the things that I did some research on it myself, and from what I heard and learned, it's probably not more dangerous than a gas-powered car. But the difference is that if you call your fire department and they show up to put out a gas-powered car, it takes about 1,000 gallons of water to put that out. But if that same fire department pulls up at one with a large battery pack, it takes about 30,000 gallons of water to put that fire out. And I don't know that we carry that much water, especially in the county where we're running without fire hydrants and so forth. In addition, it's inside of a sealed case. And I did some more research, and it looks like there's 2 different companies that provide the ability to cut into that case, so you can actually get the water into the case. And so you can either use a high-powered jet, where that your firefighters go up and use water to cut into that and then start deluging it, or you actually got a device you can slide underneath, hook to your fire truck, and it goes up and it punctures a hole in the bottom of the battery pack and starts deluging that. So what that means is that we have fire district number 1 and a number of municipalities have fire departments. So what are we going to have to add to our fire trucks in order to be able to fight a fire? So there's more expense than just putting these out there. So I'm not anti this. I want to make sure everybody understands that. I want to learn more about it. But as we learn more about it, we need to make sure that we walk into it with our eyes wide open and we know what the total cost of this is going to be. And just because the federal government is sending us a whole lot of money doesn't mean that it's a good deal. So just if anyone else wants to serve on it, I know that you can talk to WAMPO, and if you're interested in learning more about it, the first meeting really was a big learning experience for me. And let me touch on one other thing and I'll turn it away, but I know I've already talked too long, but these type 1 and 2s, they're important because they have to be at homes, because people want to leave in the morning with a full charge. And the type 1 will take you a long time to charge. The type 2 is what most people would use. So trying to locate those throughout the community wouldn't make any sense because you're probably going to leave your house in the morning with a full charge, and you can get to wherever you're going to go to work or church or wherever else you're going to go and still make it back home that day. So it's the type 3 chargers that we'll probably be looking at more for this grant opportunity in the future. So that's just kind of what I picked up from the meeting. We had a lot of people that had a lot more knowledge than I had, but it's still a learning experience. I look forward to the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you for the great update.
Thank you, Dora. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
It's evolving. The next item we have is we had a K254 study kickoff meeting in the month of April. The study team is going to look at how the future of 254 can be expanded and what are the safety measures that can be addressed on the corridor between Wichita and El Dorado. So many jurisdictions are part of that. We'll keep you posted as the study progresses, and if there are any important items that we learn, staff would keep you in the loop. We have several items today in the agenda. A couple of them are related to the studies that's going on. One of them is safety study, and the second is travel demand model study. So we have update of and status update of those two studies today as well. And then we also have East Kellogg project. Steve Cross is going to provide us an update because it includes many jurisdictions to get coming together. One of the nice things about WAMPO is how various jurisdictions come together, united on various transportation projects in the region. So these are all several examples that today you will see. And on the safety study, there is a potential grant opportunity that the study consulting teams will be sharing with us as well. With that, I'll return control. Oh, before that, with your permission, Madam Chair, I would like to introduce a new staff member, principal engineer that was hired, had an undergraduate degree from computer science, Peter Moore. If you could stand at the podium, people on online can see Peter. So Peter had been working on some of the data, and then he has a computer science background. And so far, some data and GIS, Peter, you're working on.
Yes. Well, first, it's nice to meet everybody, and this is my first transportation policy board meeting, so that's that. I recognize some of the faces from our TAC meetings and from our EV meeting the other week. Yes, my job here is to hopefully bring in-house some of our data analytics that we would typically maybe consult for, and hopefully, bring that into our own department and try to generate reports and find trends that would be useful to the Wichita Area Metropolitan Planning Organization.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And we are pleased to have Peter as an addition in his role of principal engineer, working with data and with all jurisdictions and updating the required data for transportation plan. With that, let me give that control to Bay.
Does anyone have any questions for Jed? Seeing none, we'll move on. Great job. Thank you to you and your team. Always appreciate your hard work. Next on the agenda is public comment. We always provide an opportunity for community members to make comments or suggestions. We limit to 3 minutes per individual. Is there anyone here today who is ready to make public comments? And I think we have one. Andrew, welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm Andrew Crane with Guiding Paws ICT, supporting the blind community and blind individuals with guide dogs. And I am here to talk to you guys about public transportation and seeing how we can connect the transportation system and get it to where we can get a full grid system going and get the transit some more money and getting more drivers and getting all of that going. And also mentioning to you about talking about the 1% sales tax for transit again. I know that transit is doing the transit mobile center, and that what would it take for you guys to say yes to the 1% sales tax to get more money to the transit system in Wichita and connecting the all of the different towns, Mays, Goddard, Hayesville. There's a lot of blind and disabled folks in those towns that want to see public transportation in those towns. and be able to connect to Wichita. I am a blind individual here that rides the city bus every single day. And it's time that we as a city and county work together.
Thank you, Andrew. We appreciate your coming today and always appreciate your passion and just being such a great advocate. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Andrew at this point? All right. Well, thank you, Andrew. Thank you for all you do. Next on the agenda, we have our only action item is the 2022 audit report. We saw a little preview last month. And so we're going to welcome Michael from Forvis up to give us the final version. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And as some of you probably remember, last month I did come and give you a quick summary of that final report. I think we handed out the final documents last time around. I'm sure Chad probably has a few extras, or we can email that out if we need to. But I went over some highlights, but the main summary that I want to mention this time around is, as you're well aware, you did receive enough federal funding last year, and you had enough expenditures from those federal awards that it did require a compliance audit. So we call that a single audit. So some certain regulations, some controls that we need to test around that a little bit more in depth than your regular financial statement audits. The good news about that audit is you passed with flying colors. We had no findings as a result of that audit. So certainly good news, and certainly kudos to your management team for taking to heart some of the findings that came as a result of those types of audits in the past. So with that, that's the main summary that I wanted to mention here. My main purpose here today is just, if you've had a chance to digest all those reports from last month, I was just here to be able to answer any questions or any other comments. So I might open it to that at this point in time.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd just like to take a point of privilege and really thank the WAMPO staff for all of their effort. It's great that we didn't have any findings and that it was an easy process, and just really speaks to the work that Chad and his team is doing. So thank you. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate your partnership.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day. Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. We do need to receive and file. So my bad. I would entertain a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second? Jack, y'all are on it today. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? All right, the action passes unanimously. Now we will move on to discussion and updates. The next on the agenda is the CSAP update, crash causes, next steps, and SS4A grant application. Kendra and Aaron are online, and Slade is here with us today. So please take it away.
So I'll go first and then I'll turn it over to Kendra. Is there a way I could get the packet up, Ashley? Just look down here.
No, so you'll need to exit out. It's down the bottom.
Thank you. So one of the things that we've been all right, now I think everybody can see it now. So thank you, Ashley. One of the things we've been doing as part of the TSTA meetings is kind of trying to hone in on some of the different areas to really look at different types of crashes that are occurring. We kind of honed it down into three different areas: intersection, speed, and vulnerable road users are kind of our focus areas that we're going to focus on. Intersection crashes were the primary type of crashes. The other two are kind of supplementary. Essentially 50% of the vulnerable road users, as well as I want to say about the same on the speed, were actually happening at intersections as well. So the three really overlapped so much that it was kind of a natural path for us to follow. So one of the questions we got towards the end, and I think it's a few that some of you have posed around the room, and that is kind of what is causing these types of crashes, or what are the main causes. So we split out into two groups. One, again, intersection, which should be on the right of your screen, as well as non-intersection types of crashes, and kind of broke down the contributing circumstances for each of those. The first 8 kind of held true between the two lists if you look at them. Again, some of these were coded, and back up one step. These were crashes from 2012 to 2022. Partial year of 2022 was analyzed. So it's about 109,000 total crashes when you start looking at it. And from that, you're really looking at the forms not getting filled out on all of them with contributing circumstances. Some might have multiple contributing circumstances as well that were filled out. So when you start looking at these, you can have more than one. So for instance, if one driver was drunk and the other one was not paying attention, you can have 2 sets of that. So what we did is then we cross-referenced all of those to kind of figure out the combinations of them that were happening. And again, like I said, if you look at the top 8, they were all pretty much the same, both between intersection and non-intersection. After that, it did start diverging just a hair. But the big takeaways that we took from there is roughly about 30% of these had some sort of distracted driving associated with it. And then again, I think if you start looking through the list, there's right-of-way violations, and again, more of inattention, following too closely, things like that. A little bit of too fast for conditions, so speed related as well. But in general, when you start looking through this list, that top 8 is really the ones attributing about 50% of those crashes when you start adding them up. So I guess with that, I'll stand for any questions about the data, and then I'll turn it over to Kendra.
Anyone have any questions? I have one, if that's okay. I'm just kind of a data junkie. I'm sorry.
Sure.
People here know this, but always fascinated by this. And I know that this is going to be a part of the comprehensive safety action plan, and I guess this is for Chad or Ashley or staff. Will we be utilizing this in any way? I think it's really not surprising, but maybe a teachable moment that 30% of accidents have distracted driving associated. I mean, sometimes we all kind of forget that. And I just wondered if there's a plan to use this until, or any part of it, or will it just be utilized for the safety plan?
We could actually wait for now, let Kendra kind of talk about the next steps of this, maybe,
Okay.
and that might even answer your question better.
Perfect. Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's fine. No, we are going to use it, but I'm not going to steal her thunder. I'll let Kendra take over.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all. It's great to be here with you virtually. But yeah, so my name is Kendra Shank. I'm a safety engineer at Burgess & Nyepel, part of the consulting team. And I'm going to talk about, like Slade said, the next steps, but also talking about what we're doing for the grant application itself. So if I can share my screen here, should be able to do that. Let's see if this will work. So I wanted to talk about the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. So one of the things that we're working on, and we've been starting to talk about throughout this entire process, is kind of our end game of getting things implemented. So we're creating a great plan. It's a roadmap for success. It's our roadmap for implementation and what we're going to be doing to really truly mitigate crashes in the Wichita region. So with this grant that's out there right now is Safe Streets and Roads for All. It's a 5-year federal grant. That's a competitive grant. So everybody has kind of a fair play at it. We have to submit an application for it. Last year, there were 37 projects that were awarded, and for a total of $600 million. So you can see there's $600 million, 37 projects. So we'd expect this year to be something similar. There's another $600 million on the table. And so for the next 4 years, there'll be $600 million available for implementation type projects. What I'm going to show you right now is an example that the Louisville, Kentucky Metro did that we think, in talking with Chad and staff, that we think this really matches up with what the Wichita region is looking to do with corridors in the region. So I wanted to give you an idea of what we're kind of trending toward, but then also talking about what we're going to be doing in the interim. So one of the things I will say that's happened since we started this plan, Federal Highway has moved up the application deadline. It was in September. And so our plan was to complete the CSAP by September to be able to submit for an implementation grant. However, they've moved that up to July. And so with that time frame and where we are in the plan right now, we felt it would be too rushed to try to finish the plan and put together an application. Again, only 37 projects were awarded last year, and there were 100 and something applicants, I believe. So we want to make sure that we're, really providing a strong application that's backed by data, that has all of the community recommendations and engagement and support behind it. So I want to show you real quick what Louisville did and kind of what we're tracking towards. And you can see this was a successful grant. In fact, I think they were the highest or the second highest award value of the 37 applicants. So what they've done, they have this great website, and I can share it with Chad and Ashley, and we can share that potentially if you'd like. But they have an entire website for their Safe Streets and Roads for All project. They have this map that they've identified 10 corridors in their metro area for what they're calling right sizing. And so they've got different cost breakdowns here and links for their corridors. And then up here, I've downloaded the narrative. So what's required is now it's 12 pages. This would be 10 pages of narrative of explaining what the problems are, what the solutions are, what kind of community engagement was happening. So as part of last year's application process, we helped several agencies submit on implementation grants. Unfortunately, they were not successful. But as part of that, we did get a debrief from Federal Highway, and we heard from them the importance of including certain aspects in your application. And one of those aspects is that community engagement, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. That's what we're going to be doing in the interim. But if you look through this plan or through this narrative, you can see that they had a lot of community engagement. They had buy-in behind these corridors and what they were doing. So it's very detailed, a very detailed 12 pages. Let me see, my bar is in the way here. This is their right sizing plan appendix. So this was an appendix to their application. And so you can see this is 71 pages of very detailed information. But what I wanted to get to was they did a very detailed summary pages for each of their corridors that we thought was really great information. So here's Wilson Avenue as an example. And so they have a detail of what the existing configuration is compared to what they're proposing. So in this case, they're taking a traditional 4-lane road and converting it to 3 lanes with a center turn lane, sharrows for bikes, and then sidewalks. And then on this configuration, they did already have sidewalks. So they're just doing the road diet to get a bike lane on each side. So they have one of these for every single one of their corridors. And then they've identified the crash analysis and the benefit cost ratio. So all of this to show the level of effort that was put into this application. I mean, we want to make sure that we get to this point for Wichita so that you are the most Wichita area, so that you are the most competitive. In talking with Chad and Ashley and others, we don't think all of the corridors will be in the city of Wichita. We want to make sure that it's a collaborative effort across the county and across the other cities in the area to make sure that we're really truly capturing the needs of the entire region and not just Wichita. Louisville chose to just do their metro area and not other cities or counties. So looking through that, this is what we're aiming towards from an implementation grant standpoint. But in the interim, one of the things that we can submit on now is they're calling them planning and demonstration grants. These are, I would say, far less competitive. Last year, they awarded 474 action plans, and they were actually underfunded, or they didn't have enough applications to actually spend all of the funding. So they have $577 million as opposed to $400 million to spend this year on doing additional planning activities and demonstration activities. And so what we're talking with Chad and his staff and others about are what can we apply for now in this cycle to set us up in the future for implementation. So one of the things we're talking about is additional community engagement, especially surrounding these corridors. So getting people on board with these specific corridors. but also a lot with the KDOT initiatives that are going on. There's been some conversations about what KDOT is doing as far as the communications and public outreach, and how can we tap into that and expand into the Wichita region. So we're looking at that. And then we're also looking at how we can do some demonstration type activities. And so what they mean by demonstration are essentially temporary improvements. So thinking about flex post delineators to do kind of a road reconfiguration. So if we're going back to this corridor, instead of going ahead and, you know, moving the curb line here in this case and providing sidewalk, maybe it's we just put flex post delineators up and we see how that operates. Or it could be doing temporary speed humps. So buying the temporary, put in the speed humps, see how that works, put them around different areas of the city or the region to figure out if this works on this corridor versus on this corridor before we do something permanent. So those are the types of projects that we're looking at, and that can be submitted in July as we're wrapping up the plan itself, but we can get us already started and get us thinking about the implementation grant for future application cycles. So with that, I've just gone over a ton of information, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions for Kendra? Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Kendra and Slade, for the update. Just want to touch base, how this study started and what, how we are collaborating with our partners as well as cities and jurisdictions. Our chair said the right thing, like, what are we doing with this data? How are we using this in the next steps? We had discussions with our city manager at City of Wichita, Bob Layton, and also Gary Jansen. The primary reason why we started this study was to identify what are the causes of the crashes to improve safety. That's how it all started. And then we looked at the data because each region has certain causes that are predominant, and the other regions have certain other causes that are predominant. So we want to identify, and like Kendra said, the application will be successful if it is data-driven. And if the collaboration is, documented. We have a lot going on with state DOT, like Vanessa Spartan, Bureau Chief of Safety, City of Wichita, and Derby County, WAMPO staff. This study itself is progressing well. We have talented staff like Kendra who wants to guide. There's a May 17th meeting called Transportation Safety Technical Advisors Meeting. So during that meeting, Kendra will have more input to City of Wichita staff and Derby and the county and all jurisdictions here based on this data that was compiled and analyzed. So just want to provide an update. July 10th is the deadline for the grant application. And then the study will be completed in fall. There will be another opportunity called implementation grant after the fall 2023. So there were two opportunities, and Kendra was talking about the first opportunity, that's demonstration grant. With that, thank you, Mr.
Oh, thank you. Any questions for Chad or for anyone else involved? Thank you very much for the updates and for all the hard work. Appreciate it. Next, we're going to move up on the agenda, as we mentioned, the innovation and innovative projects in the greater Wichita area, Bel Air specifically this month, highlighting Integra. And we have Tom Lasher. And did Andrew Nave join us as well? I didn't see him. Okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. It's been Tuesday all day. So Ty, yes, my command of the English language is lacking today. So thank you, Ty.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to move up on the agenda. I appreciate
Oh,
it.
yeah, absolutely.
It's actually the mayor's fault. It's always the mayor's fault. He scheduled a special meeting tonight, so I've got to get back and get that set up. So anyway, Andrew Nave was supposed to be here, but I don't know why he's not. I guess he's probably chasing some other business to come to our region. But that's all right. He just kind of yaks anyway, so I'll kind of take over for him.
There was a comment. Is that what you said? Okay, so. Yeah, we'll share it later. Okay. There we go. If you can do the mouse.
Okay. All right. So again, Ty Lasher, City Manager, and Andrew Nave with Greater Wichita Partnership is not here today. So he was going to talk a little bit about the priorities and such of the Greater Wichita Partnership. But since he's not here, I'm going to skip it. So a little bit about Bel Air. We're a young city, incorporated in 1980. Current population about 8,200. Have a medium household income of close to 85,000. We've seen a 20% population growth, as many cities have. Last year, we built about 330 new homes. So most of it's been residential. So this is our boundaries. We're basically up northeast. We've got some great neighbors, Keachai, Park City, Wichita is a neighbor. And we actually annexed 280s this year because of development and the things that are happening in our neck of the woods. So the big thing that I'm here to talk about is Integra selecting Bel Air for their $1.8 billion semiconductor facility. Something that's probably another time and discussion, but actually Bob Layton and I had a lot of talk back and forth when they were looking at Wichita and Bel Air, and probably a unique situation that we actually kind of work together and we're supporting each other on this. So it's a good way that cities can actually work together in economic development. But this is kind of the drawing of what they're going to do in Bel Air. So this is their layout. Rock Road is on the left there, 254 is on the north. The whole site's about 130 acres. There's 2 phases that they're looking at building, and then you can see we've got a developer that's purchased to the right the additional 160 acres for future development. So a little bit about Integra. They're the largest outsourced semiconductor assembly test service provider in the U.S. So they do a lot of work using unusual materials, testing. They're relatively new, founded in 1980. They're an employee-owned and ESOP. Currently, they've got about 550 employees. They actually have a second location in Silicon Valley, so we're lucky that they chose to expand here in Kansas. I did a little bit about them. They were awarded the $490 million Apex incentives. Only one of those are awarded a year, and I think it expires next year through the state of Kansas. So the DeSoto Panasonic plant got one and got the award in 2022, and Integra got the award for this year. They do need CHIPS funding. So you may have heard of that. The federal legislation has about $200 billion in CHIPS funding. And in order for them to actually make this work, they need that funding. So they've already sent in their initial, this is of course the federal government, you all work with them through WAMPO, and you know how they are. So there's actually 2 application processes. You have to send in a pre-app and then your formal app. And they sent in their pre-app. They've already received some positive feedback. They found out they're the only OSAT that applied for funding. So the other ones are chip manufacturers. So they're the only ones that do testing and packaging. So that's a very positive. They needed the APACS funding. And then they received incentives from Bel Air and Sedgwick County as well. And then they're going to invest over $1 billion of their own money. They've estimated, or Greater Wichita Partnership has estimated about a $450 million annual economic impact. So in order to get the Apex funding, they had to create at least 1,000 new jobs and have $1 billion in capacity to actually be eligible for the Apex funding. This is a little bit about the Apex, the tool that the state did, and Andrew was going to talk about that. So, and this is where it was 2021 to 2023 is for-profit companies had to invest at least $1 billion. The great thing that's for our region is, as part of this Apex funding, they can choose up to 5 qualified suppliers who will get the same incentive as well. So our goal is that they bring not only their expansion, but they'll bring 5 suppliers with them. Phase 1, they produce chips and test and package. They're building a 1 million square foot building. They'll have at least 2,000 employees. They're putting in a 20-acre solar field. They're going to have a daycare on site. They're going to have a cafeteria on site. They're going to have a 100,000 square foot training center. Their plan was to break ground in October of this year. The Apex funding requires them to break ground this year at some point. So if they get the CHIPS funding, they will start construction before the end of the year. Their plan is to be open, operating in 2025. They're actually, the neat thing is the Northeast Magnet High School is located just to the south of them, and they're already partnering with the high school. One of their, as a magnet, one of their primary focuses is engineering. And so they're going to actually probably put a sidewalk in for kids to go over from the Northeast Magnet to do intern and learn about computer processing and chip manufacturing. And hopefully that's where they'll get some of their future employees, is from the high school. So that's a great thing for the area. Of course, they're working very closely with WSU Tech. Phase 2, they hope to start that in 2032. So about 7 years, 5 to 7 years later, phase 2 will go in. That's adding another 1 million square foot, and that'll bring their total to about 5,000 employees. And that'll take an additional $1 billion investment that they'll make. So as far as the incentives, Bel Air, we had to do a 10-year IRB, which everybody typically does. We're going to create a TIF district. We've got some separate economic development incentives that last for 15 years. The county stepped up with some workforce funding of $500,000. Bel Air is putting $250,000. So in total, they're getting about 35 years worth of incentives from Bel Air. So some of the things we're going to have to do is we need to do a traffic study. Rock Road, you notice they were right along Rock Road. So we're going to need to improve that to at least a 3-lane. Webb Road's going to need some improvements. It's already a 4-lane, but probably needs some turn lanes. Got water and sewer mains. We're looking at possibly a new public safety building with some fire, police and EMS. There'll be a frontage road along 254. And then again, we had to put some cash for a workforce development grant. So when we talk about regionalism, this is proof of how regional Bel Air is, and really the metro. We did this a few years ago before Integra announced, but we have Sunflower Commerce Park that's located at 53rd and Webb. And phase 1 is about completed. About 525 employees work there. And you can see they travel from 21 cities. And of that, only 31 live in Bel Air. So when we talk about regionalism and the impact that suppliers or companies like Integra, the majority of it benefits not Bel Air, but the region. So that's something that really opened our eyes when we were looking at regionalism. So if we take that workforce that Integra is bringing and use those same figures from that 525, the El Dorado will get probably at least 20, Keachai will get 20, we'll get about 150, and Wichita is going to get 1,400. So again, that's the importance that, and of course, every city here is going to get some of those because there were 25 cities that were located, that were listed. So that's how important a business like Integra is to this region, not just Bel Air. We're only going to get a small minority of them living in Bel Air. The rest of the region is going to reap a lot of benefits. So again, they need the CHIPS funding. If they can't get the CHIPS funding, they won't be able to expand. So this will not happen. We're going to create a TIF district. We're looking at our utility needs. We've already hired PEC to do that for us. And then we're going to need some street improvements, not only in Bel Air, but along the 254 corridor. So what we're looking at, and actually the mayor and I were spent yesterday in Topeka talking to the governor and lieutenant governor, going over these same things about partnerships we're going to need with the state and the county here and other cities. But 254 is probably going to 254 and Webb's probably going to need an interchange. And looking at about $25 million. The key is that the challenge is we've got to get all this done in 2 years because they want to be up and running in 2 years from the date they break ground. So this is what it looks like today. It's a at-grade intersection. You can see the cars backed up there. And this is just your typical day. This is without adding 2,000 to 5,000 employees trying to get on 254 from Webb. And of course, this is what we see all too often. We were talking about crashes earlier. KDOT did a traffic study from 2013, 2019, and there were 7 deaths just in that time period at that intersection. K250 and 4 and Rock, probably looking at an interchange or possibly an overpass. And again, that'll need to be done. There already is a frontage road on the north side between Rock and Woodlawn. Woodlawn's got an interchange. Here's the current condition. Again, you can see it's backed up. I mentioned that USD 259 has the northeast magnet. You can see on the bottom picture, there's buses actually crossing Rock Road there. And again, these people are driving 75, 80 miles an hour. And this is what we see all too often. In that 2013, 2019 time period, there's been 3 deaths. You can see 35 crashes. And then Greenwich, we're also looking at that. It's a little bit farther out, but probably an overpass there as well is going to have to be considered. Again, an at-grade intersection. This is the deadliest intersection with 7 deaths in that time period, 45 crashes. We're going to look at a frontage road because if we put overpasses in, we'll need frontage roads to get to the interchanges. So we've got an interchange at Woodlawn. Rock has an overpass. There'll be a frontage road that goes in there. The city actually kept right away. You can see that that green area that we actually own that we can donate to the project to help with the cost. Here's the frontage road that's already in on Keachai, which is on the north side for their industrial park. So that's already there. Rock Road, obviously it's basically a county road, two lane standard road with open ditches. We're going to have to go to a minimum of three lanes. And we'll have to expand it probably from 254 all the way to 37. So we're going to have some discussions with the city of Wichita because Rock is a 5-lane up to 37th, and it drops to a 2-lane through Willow Bend, and then Bel Air picks it up as a 3-lane that can really cause some congestion through there. So those will be some fun discussions that we may have to have with a residential neighborhood. But But anyway, some of the ways that we're going to be looking for WAMPO support. Rock Road at this point hasn't even been on the long-range transportation plan. But it's probably going to have to be moved up because of all the economic development that's going to be taking shape there. Webb Road, we're going to need some turn lanes and stuff. Part of that's actually in Sedgwick County, so we'll have to be working with the county on that. Our meeting yesterday with the secretary, KDOT secretary, they're looking at least an interchange at Webb, maybe an overpass at Rock and Greenwich. Local consults are this fall, which timing wise, that's good. But we're going to be looking for WAMPO and all of the regional cities to support some of these improvements. That was something that they said was such a feather in the cap of our region was the North bypass, how everybody supported that. And that really got that improved. So we're going to be asking for your support for this, as well as the K254 corridor. They've been very supportive as well for the whole corridor. So with that, open it up for questions. Anybody has any questions, be happy to answer.
Yeah, questions for Ty, Councilmember Fry.
Hi, thank you, Ty, for the presentation. If you could go back to your very first slide where you showed the project site with the future development to the east. What was the divider in the middle? Nope. There. Is that Webb Road in the middle?
No, so Rock Road is all the way, is on the left. That's where they're actually butting. Webb is over here.
On the far right.
Yeah, on the far right. And that, so that there's a frontage road. And I think that's just a road that they were looking at platting between the two developments. So, but yeah.
And is the development on the east more residential, industrial? Is it determined, or is that just?
That is all zoned as industrial. So it will be commercial. Now to the south of that is residential. But this is all, this whole 320 acres is zoned industrial.
Thank you.
Great question. Any other questions for Ty? Thank you for a great presentation. It's very interesting, and we look forward to having all the economic development that it'll bring to this region. So thank you for your time today. I know you're very busy with all the work you're doing right now in Bel Air. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Have a great day. All right, moving on to the rest of the regular agenda, we have the TDM update, accomplishments and upcoming activities with Sasha and Mike and Lonnie and Paul. And I think Sasha and Mike are here with us, correct?
Correct.
Awesome.
Ty, do you need your USB? Okay.
Thank you all for the opportunity to be here today. I'm Mike Malone with JEO. I am the project manager on the consultant team for the travel demand model update project. Sasha, as you mentioned, is here with me in person, and Paul and Lonnie, I believe, are online. We're going to give you a quick update on the travel demand model update project, and I'm going to start with having Sasha just give you a quick overview of the travel demand model, what it is, and kind of what we have set out to accomplish.
Good afternoon, policy body members, Madam Chair. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to share some information about what we've been doing for WAMPO. So just real quick, what is a travel demand model? A travel demand model is a computer model that helps transportation planners develop long-range plans and improve the transportation network. It does this by using local, did I do that? Whoops. Sorry, I touched something. Oh, there it's back. Technology. That's why I have the speaking part, not the technology part. Okay, so it does this by using local data inputs such as land use, population, employment, and then information on the local transportation network. All of this is put into a computer model. And what the model does is to provide a picture of the existing and future travel travel in the region, and that helps for helps planners develop transportation plans and plan public transportation networks. Sorry, lost my place. The travel demand model helps answer questions like which streets will become congested in the future and what transportation projects will best improve the region's modes of future travel. Like any good tool, the transportation model, there are things that it can and can't do. Examples of things that the travel demand model can do is it can show the impact of road improvements such as widening or narrowing, as well as road additions or removals from the transportation network. The TDM can show the impact of large new development, like Ty was just sharing with us in Bel Air. What it can't do is simulate traffic for small developments or to give us an idea of the impact for specific intersections or roadway improvements. So in a nutshell, it's a computer model that helps transportation planners understand the future travel demand on the network in the region. With that, I'm going to hand it back over to Mike. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sasha.
All right, I'm gonna continue what Sasha started and talk a little bit about some of the accomplishments. We included a few slides or a few graphics on this slide, really as more of a to whet your appetite, I would say, for the future. Lots of data goes into the model, and there's lots of data and lots of information that comes out of the model. So as we go forward in this process, there'll be an opportunity for WAMPO staff as well as all of the partner agencies to interact with the project team in WAMPO in terms of how do we use the model, maybe specific questions that you might have for your area of the region in terms of model use and application. I didn't intend to go over these, but just to tell you what they are, so I don't leave you hanging sort of on what are the pictures. The one with the blue dots, and you can't see it from this distance, but it's actually kind of a mode choice. How do people drive to work? And it mostly looks like blue dots, which means most of them are single vehicle occupancy trips that are people that are taking to work. But if you look closely, there are some slivers of red or other colors, which indicates that some people might be taking transit, they might be carpooling, they might be walking or biking. So there are some other modes of travel that are happening. The other two graphics are simply some graphics that illustrate some volume to capacity or some volumes on roadway networks, on the roadway network within the region, again, which is one of the primary outputs of the travel demand model. So what have we accomplished to date? There's really three main things that we have been working on up until now in this project. One of them is the community engagement aspect, and that's actually Sasha is our community engagement lead and has been leading the charge relative to that. So we've been working with WAMPO staff to develop a project web page, a fact sheet that was included in your packet. And we're also doing a number of other things that are partially complete in terms of stakeholder outreach, surveys, and things like that to continue to gauge from the stakeholders in the region what's important from the travel demand modeling perspective and how we can gain insight from them as to what's important with this project. We actually had a phone call earlier today, and we're working on an animation or a video, if you will, that's another piece of the puzzle, so to speak, from the standpoint of community engagement. So you'll probably see that in the near future when we roll that out as one of the next pieces of the community engagement. The model update, which of course is one of the focal points of the project, is developing that tool. That's a model. Every MPO, every major region in the country has a travel demand model. So this is a fairly typical process in terms of conducting the model update every 3 to 5 years, like WAMPO is doing. And up until this point in the project, we've been working on the 4 main elements of the model, which is trip generation, trip distribution, mode choice. How do you go somewhere, whether it's by single occupant vehicle, or whether it's some other mode of transportation, and then ultimately assigning traffic to the roadway network. At the bottom of this slide are some data sources, and this is one of the, I think, one of the more interesting and unique elements of this project at this point in time. Is some of those data sources are pretty traditional, whether it be census data or whether it's the external travel survey, which is actually a WAMPO sponsored project. That information is somewhat dated, but it's still very relevant. But we need to use it. We need to use it with caution because those things are changing with cell phones and with Uber and Lyft and all the different types of transportation that are out there. There's a lot of dynamics happening in terms of how do people actually use the transportation network. So there's a lot of details behind what's going on, but then we're also using things like location-based services and connected vehicle data. And Paul, and I don't know if Srini's on the phone, but Paul, as part of our project team with Caliper, could certainly answer more questions if you have more detailed questions. And one of the other things that I think is very interesting is we're using artificial intelligence or machine learning is being used in some of the applications that are on this slide in terms of trip generation and some of the other model elements. And that's something that, up until a couple of years ago wasn't even possible. And you've probably read a lot of stuff in the newspaper recently about artificial intelligence and is it good or bad? And how can it be used in a positive way versus how can it be used in negative ways? Well, we're obviously trying to use it in a positive way. And I think there's some real applications because it allows us to do some computational things that simply weren't possible a few years ago. And I think it'll end up adding value to the process. So that's the model update. We're probably, I don't know, I'd say about halfway through the model validation, model calibration process. So we will very soon in the near future be ready to start using that model on whether it's WAMPO applications or other applications in the region. The second key thing I wanted to talk about was the congestion management process. The CMP is a federally mandated process, but it's also one that I would say is, these are my words, I don't know if Chad agrees with me, but it's somewhat loosely regulated, meaning that there's a fair amount of latitude that we as the project team and WAMPO get to use in terms of developing the congestion management process. But it's basically going through that flow chart that's on the screen in terms of identifying congestion areas of concerns, goals and objectives. What can we do to improve areas? What can we do to evaluate and monitor those areas, perhaps implement improvements, and then kind of rinse and repeat and go through that process again on a regular cycle in terms of trying to continue to update and improve the region. At this point in time, we've developed kind of a framework for developing the CMP process. We're going through some additional stakeholder engagement with actually a specific stakeholder group for the CMP process that includes a lot of the agencies, of course, that are part of the WAMPO region, WAMPO partners, but we're also looking at law enforcement, trucking association, some of the other, key users of the transportation network. And we'll be going through that process to develop the plan and then document that. So that's another topic that we'll come back and you'll see more of that as we go through our process. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about briefly is our project schedule. You can see that we're about halfway through the project, which is the blue line on the chart. We're probably a month or so away from kind of wrapping up the model development process in terms of the initial effort to calibrate and validate the model, get to the point where we're ready to use the model, supporting things like the Metropolitan Plan, other initiatives that either WAMPO has on or some of the partner agencies may have going on. The project will be going on for until about this time next year. So we'll have some other things that we'll report back on over the next 12 months. And as I said on, I guess, this last slide, we're to the point where we're going to be able to run the model in the near future. We could run the old model now, but we'll be able to run the new model here, I would say, in the next 4 to 6 weeks when it's calibrated and we've fully confident that it's replicating existing conditions well, and then we can use it to replicate or forecast future conditions, whether it's scenarios for growth like the Integra development, or whether it's for specific projects like the MTP update or other things. So that's kind of a quick overview of where we're at in the process, and our team would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Yeah, Chad, please.
Madam Chair, thank you, Mike and Sasha, for the presentation. And I think, that's a good timing, the timeline. And I'm glad you shared the timeline. By the way, I agree with you on the congestion management process. Gary Jansen from City of Wichita is also interested in, we all are interested and several jurisdictions are interested in making sure the model is doing well and replicating well. The previous model did not address very well in certain interchanges and certain growth areas. I think in the next few months, if we test this, what we have with some of the projects, we can continue to make some improvements until April as well. So that will also something to keep us in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Great comment. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mike and
All
Sasha,
right.
for the
Thank you.
presentation.
Appreciate your
I
time.
really appreciate it. I learned a lot, so thank you. All right, so moving on the agenda, next we have the MTP 2050 update, survey and milestones, and our very own Ashley's going to join us again.
Yes, thank you. So we are finally starting to begin our public engagement phase 1 for the MTP 2050 plan. We will have a survey completed or ready to go out live, hopefully by the end of the day on Friday. So we're going to be at the Wichita Flea Market on Saturday. And so we want to have the survey ready so we can talk to people. And then we also are booking other locations that we can go talk about the survey and about WAMPO in general. Thank you to the mayor of Bel Air sending the Bel Air Fall Fest, I think is what it was. It's in October, so we're gonna plan to go to that. And we can also go to any other meetings or anything else that you have going on. We'd love to just talk about WAMPO and this project. So this is our timeline there on the bottom. We'll be doing a call for projects in the beginning part of September. And then that will close the beginning of 2024. And so that will be kind of the next major thing that'll be coming up for you all, as well as us going places. So please let me know if you would like us to be somewhere.
Ashley, can I ask you a quick question? So say more about maybe, let's say Riverfest, I'm just
Yeah.
giving an example. Do you have a booth? Do you just walk around? What do you need? And then also my second part of this would be a maybe kind of a request that if you would send something out to us as just a prompt, because then I can be looking through my calendar and my colleagues all across the region could as well.
Definitely.
Just to see if, we and I can send it to our communications team and
Yeah.
they can help think, but what are the guidelines or what do you need to be able to make that happen?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we can bring a table if you don't have one, but like at the flea market, they're going to have a table for us. So we'll take our tablecloth, we'll take all of our papers, and we were talking today about maybe taking a monitor and a laptop in order to show some maps and just try to entice people to talk to us. And so really, we just need some space in order to set up. We could do the same thing, like I said, at a meeting, have a really quick spiel and then pass out the survey.
So it's a paper survey someone takes?
We'll have both an online survey and a paper survey. I've just found that sometimes it's easier to get people to do the paper survey while they're standing right there.
Yeah.
So,
And one last question, and then I'm sorry, but just because I'm curious and also to help, like, how long is the survey? How long will it take someone?
yeah, I think it's about 19 questions. Of course, that includes a whole bunch of demographic questions. We're thinking, I don't know if we have a time frame yet because we haven't actually run through the survey, but 10-ish minutes probably
Okay,
to do it.
that's helpful.
So, yeah, but yeah, I will definitely send out an email to you all and provide that information also.
Fantastic. Any other questions for Ashley so that we can help us, right?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate it. Thank you very much for the information. Next, we have Stephen and Shane to talk about the East Kellogg project update. Yay.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not there in person. Do I need to share the PowerPoint presentation or you guys have that?
We have
I'm not
it.
sure
If you
how this is going to work.
advance the slides.
Okay. Do I need a request control or anything like that?
No, if you can just say next when you're ready to go to the next one.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm here to talk about the East Kellogg project, K96 to 159th Street. Next slide. So the project was identified as part of the IKE program, the 10-year, $10 billion program. And the project that was selected basically goes from roughly 127th Street to Onewood. Next slide. Sorry, there's a little bit of delay.
We're trying.
Okay. So we went through the analysis and we determined that travel, time reliability is important. These four are basically the goals of the project: support the economic growth that's happening out in that area in the Wichita, Sedgwick County, Butler County, and the Andover area. Also, delivering the project effectively and efficiently and within a budget. And the budget for this project is roughly $3 million at this time. And we want to minimize construction impacts. So make sure that we have the traveling public accommodated for while we do construction. Next slide. We started off with the environmental impact study. It's basically a NEPA process. And so the EA, the environmental assessment, was basically broken up into two different phases. Now, phase one is what I just talked about. It was selected as part of the Ike program. And phase two is a future project, but it was also cleared under the same EA. Next slide. Well, we looked at an environmental assessment or wetland impacts, the stormwater management issues, which is kind of new to Kansas. Basically, it's a responsibility or requirement that we treat the water that comes off the highway and make sure that it's clean before it enters any kind of streams or waterways. We also looked at the traffic noise impacts, and that was a big issue for several residents in the area during our public meetings. Changes in access, and so we looked at those. We looked at bicycle and pedestrian facilities and connections, potential residential displacements, which we always try to minimize the impacts to right away and any kind of relocations or displacements. At the end of January, we were issued a FONSI, a finding of no significant impact. And so basically the environmental process clears us to continue with design and right-of-way purchases and also utility relocates. Next slide. I'm going to dig into a little bit about the noise study since it was definitely a hot topic out there. So KDOT went out and modeled the existing condition, the existing noise, and you can see the different boxes on the screen, the A through P or R. And we basically got a baseline, an existing condition model from the noise receptors. And within those, they're more highly concentrated residential areas is typically what we focus on. And we went out and put in 277 receptacles to basically get the baseline noise condition. Next slide. The results that we found from that were actually kind of surprised me. Majority of them actually reduced the noise. So what we do is we take the existing condition and we model basically our proposed alignments, horizontal and vertical, and the intersections, interchanges that we're basically improving through the corridor. And then we compare those. And if basically what we're looking at is any kind of threshold increase. And out of the 277 properties that we had those receptors at, only 2 of them actually increased that threshold amount that would actually require like a noise wall. And based on the regulations, we have to have 3 or more to actually warrant any kind of noise barrier. So this project was basically determined not to have any noise. And some of the reasons for that are the highway in several of the areas are moving further away from residents. Plus, by eliminating the intersections at 143rd and 159th and basically making them an interchange. So the through movements are no longer, you don't have the trucks stopping and starting, which creates quite a bit of noise for the residents. So even though the volume of the highway and the development throughout that area is going to be increasing over time, we're projecting, the noise shouldn't get any worse than it is today. Next slide. Moving into design and construction a little bit. Next slide. The typical section that we're using is pretty much the standard typical section you'll see throughout the corridor on Kellogg to the west. It's basically going to be a 6-lane section with one-way frontage roads on each side. Next slide. This was the concept of the K96 US 54 interchange that was shown in the EA. We have hired a consultant to do the preliminary and final design. So they're going to take this design, and we've already started modifying some of the layouts a little bit to try to make it a little bit more efficient. And they're going to really dig into the details for this interchange. Next slide. The that's 143rd Street is pretty much going to look like this. There are some minor tweaks, some of the alignments in the horizontal and the vertical, but for the most part, this is the interchange that you're going to see out there. We did make some revisions based on public meeting comments that we received on the south side. You can see mostly on the south side, we added that left in to Edgewater Road for the residents there. Next slide. And there's a few more public comments that we received for the 159th Street. So we made some slight changes. Also, I will point out that in the design process so far, we think that roundabouts at this location will be better instead of the signalized intersections that you see on this slide. So 159th Street doesn't carry quite as much traffic as 143rd Street. So we think that the roundabouts are going to be a good idea here. Also on the kind of that darker colored rectangle, that backage road, we also think can move quite a bit farther to the south and actually tie into the roundabout as opposed to having to snake it farther to the north. So consultants currently looking at some alternatives there. There's also a slight tweak in the connection there at Onewood that we're looking at. And we're going to have some local coordination meetings coming up. Actually, I think there's one tomorrow to discuss that with the local officials. Next slide. Originally, KDOT had planned to deliver this project as a progressive design build delivery method. That was put on hold probably back in November, I believe, and it was reevaluated. And since that time, it's been decided that we're gonna do a more traditional design bid build method, but we're going to be accelerating the schedule as much as possible, because the goal is to get out to construction as quickly as possible and get done with construction as quickly as possible. Because KDOT does have the K96 project that we're also working on between the North Junction and US 54. So just a little background on that. We're hoping to be out in construction in the summer of 2025. Like I already mentioned, Trans Systems will be completing the work. They were hired the first part of April, and so they've been working on it for about 5 weeks now, and they're making some pretty good progress. And we're hoping it only takes about 2 years to get out to final design. The majority of the time will be driven by the purchasing of right-of-way. We will have several properties that we will be impacting, and I've been getting calls. Well, next slide, I think it's on there. Our next step is the first bullet. We've actually done that. We've had some letters go out to the property owners within the corridor. I just got off the phone with a property owner on the south side of US 54 just today. And so I am starting to get some calls and some feedback from those property owners. So that communication has been sent out. Design work is underway and it will continue. We also are coordinating with utility companies. We have two, Evergy and Southern Star are a couple of big utility companies that we're trying to coordinate with early. and getting some of those relocated or coordination done, way in advance. We'll continue to coordinate with the local agencies and do presentations like this to pretty much anybody that requests or has a need. Right now, we have 4 properties that are in kind of the right-of-way appraisal process. It's kind of some early right-of-way purchases that we're looking at doing. And we're planning on having some property owner meetings late summer, early fall. So with that, I think last slide. Thanks for having me. Like I said, I'm always willing to update any of the communities or discuss what the projects what the project status is. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. You can go to the website there on the screen, East Kellogg KSDOT Ike.gov, and you can find the East Kellogg project as well. With that, any questions that I may be able to answer?
Any questions? Comments? Compliments? No, thank you for the
Much
presentation.
praise from Andover. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I'm probably thinking the same thing that Vice Chair Troy is that this is in my district. And so I know Andover, Butler County, Sedgwick County, which have been working together on this along with KDOT, but you mentioned some community engagement opportunities. I'd love to be included and invited to any of those. I'll attend any that you'd like me to be at. So please just let me know. And Andover, I can't speak for them, but I think they probably would feel the same way. So anything else for the group? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you for all your hard work.
Yep.
Next, finally, before the storm blows up some more, we're going to go to committee and partnership updates real quickly for the executive committee. We did meet last Thursday, May 3rd at 2 p.m. Just to give you some highlights, we talked about the MPO federal certification that Ashley mentioned earlier, talked about the audit final reports, financial reports, 2023 UPWT task status, and the 2050 MTP. And then also I just mentioned that Brett Likowski with the South Central Kansas Transportation Coalition and myself are meeting monthly just to make sure that we're coordinating and we know what each other's doing and how we can support each other. The next executive committee meeting will be August 3rd at 11 a.m. So anybody who wants to join, you are welcome. We meet right here in this building in the MAPD conference area. So next is the transit spotlight with Wichita Transit with Nate Hinkle. Thanks for being here, Nate, and hanging to the end.
Hey, thanks for having me. And I kind of like being at the end because I can certainly be concise with everything. So I'll start off with some ridership. Ridership has been excellent this year. It's up about 29% over last year. And for the first time post-pandemic, we're about 5% higher than we were in 2019. So finally seeing some good recovery and even advancement from our numbers pre-pandemic. Also highlighting on ridership, a lot of that is still due to the ridership of students, both with Wichita Public Schools and Wichita State. That's been averaging about mid 30% of our ridership all school semester. Veterans Ride Free program is still doing great. Last 2 months in a row, we've hit over 5,000 rides. So that program has been growing wonderfully ever since the start. We're coming up close to 3 years with that now. And on a note with that, likely going to be working with the sponsors of that program, the United Way and the VA, to bring more awareness to the VA staff so they can get that information out to their patients. Because we found through a recent acquaintance of mine that started working at the VA, there was very little information that was shared with them when they started working there. So we could do a better job of making sure that everyone there is aware to get that information out to the veterans. Moving on from ridership, just some initiatives that we have going on this summer. We'll have a new extension off the queue line called the Museum Loop that will be serving the areas of Exploration Place, Mid-American All Indian Museum, Wichita Art Museum, Old Cowtown, and the Advanced Learning Library. So that'll be an extension off the queue line, free to ride. It'll provide service as frequent as about every 20 minutes during peak times. So we encourage everyone to get out and use that service. Also for the summer, we'll have the return of the ride program where youth 18 and under can ride all the routes free all the time, just by saving their student ID from the school semester. Or if they'd like to get a student ID at the downtown transit center, they can certainly do that for free as well. So that's a great opportunity for kids to get out, use our transit system while parents are at work. Kids can still get access to jobs, activities, things like that. So transportation is certainly not an issue in Wichita. Yeah, with that, also working on some initiatives with the Talent Roadmap Coalition to get access for employment centers and so forth in Wichita. And relevant to our public comment today, we are working on a system redesign study that's going to be going out for a request for proposals here in the next couple of weeks. And that will be an opportunity for, I guess, different vendors to analyze our current system and provide analysis feedback on how we can improve the system, redesign our network, different service models, how that could be different times of the day, extending hours, basically everything Andrew Crane was asking for. And it would also come with the budget with that. So they'll say these are the different models we have, and this is the amount of funding necessary to make it happen. And we will give a city council opportunity to review those plans and decide whether they want to vote to put that on the ballot or not for the public to vote on to have that kind of a tax measure. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Nate? Thank you, Nate. Thanks for being here to the very end. And I really do appreciate all that Transit's doing to try and create the next generation of ridership in Wichita. That's new and innovative. And Director Tan, I think, is just doing an outstanding job along with his team. So thank you for all you do.
It's been great. Thank you.
Yeah, take care. All right, next, our friend Mike Moriarty with KDOT updates.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great to be here. Hope everyone's doing well. So the legislative session did wrap up on the 28th, and I do plan to have a recap of any activities that affected transportation or KDOT next month. So please be patient with me. Also, we talked a little bit about local consult earlier today. So Wednesday, October 18th, 9 a.m. Hughes Metropolitan Complex will be the Wichita Local Consult event. October 18th, 9 a.m. Hughes, as usual. As per normal, we're going to have it at Hughes. Also, Mr. Malone, we talked about the WAMPO TDM update. We do use the WAMPO model to score KDOT projects as part of our local consultation process. So yet another real world application of the WAMPO model. And with that, I'll be brief. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Fantastic. Next, Wichita Metro Division KDOT, and I think it's Nick today, correct?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair.
Of course.
Just a quick update on the flyover that's happening from northbound 135 to southbound 235, the big project that everyone's waiting to get open. Tom is working with our KDOT partners in Topeka on scheduling a ribbon cutting style ceremony. I think it's scheduled for May 31st, and then plans to be open in the first part of June is what we're looking at right now for that portion of the project. Work is continuing to go on with the phase 2, the southern part of the North Junction as well. So Tom's much more elegant at this, but I yield for any questions at this point. So
You did great. And I'm excited because WAMPO was asked to be part of the ribbon cutting ceremony. So that's awesome.
Glad to have you.
Yeah. Any questions? All right, last but not least, Federal Highway Administration. Is it Cecily today? Or Rick? Ashley, do you know? I didn't see either on the board earlier, but. They might have had to step off. Looks like they stepped off. All right. So any other business? Oh, I'm sorry.
One quick thing, Allison, you had undone, yeah.
Well, I popped on just to let Madam Chair know that Cecily Cochran is helping with the certification review, but she has moved on to the Missouri Division of Federal Highway. So we are awaiting her replacement for the community planner position. So thought I'd let you know that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Other business?
I do have one other business.
Okay,
We had a comment earlier. I can get to
thank
it.
you, Ashley.
Oh, I can't get to it. Can you read it? No. Here, it's this one. Go ahead and read it.
Emily Jensen just asked if anybody has read the article on cake.com about the study that ranks Kansas as the 4th deadliest state for distracted driving.
That was published on yesterday.
I'll make sure I go check it out. And we saw 30% of crashes came from distracted driving, right? So timely information. Thank you for sharing. I'll make sure I check it out on cake.com. Any other issues? Councilman Fry.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I apologize for missing the beginning of the meeting. But I happened to notice in the minutes that there might have been an incorrection, and I wanted to know if that was approved as written or was it updated?
It was not, so you can mention it. Eagle Eye, you get the gold star for
Well,
reviewing
only
the minutes
because
so
we-
thoroughly.
Only because we have so few meetings with the WAMPO Queen. I wanted to make sure that it recognized that it was Chair Becky Tuttle called this meeting to order and not Chair David Dennis.
Thank you very much. Duly noted. And Ashley will make a correction to the minutes. I don't think we need to revote on the minutes. I think it'll be okay. Any other, thank you very much. Any other business for the good of the order? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you. A second? Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? You can stay. See you next month.